Michael Jordan looked Denny Hamlin in the eye during the offseason and told him, after everything that went wrong, we're about to find out who you really are. You either respond or you fold. 3 consecutive wins later, Hamlin has his answer, and it's one that's starting to scare the rest of NASCAR. Here's the situation in plain terms. Hamlin enters the back half of the regular season on a 3-race winning streak. Nashville, Michigan, Pocono, his 4th win of the year. He came into 2026 sitting 118 points behind championship leader Tyler Reddick just 4 races in. With 9 races left in the regular season, that gap is now 19 points. He didn't just win races to close that deficit. He did it while also leaving points on the table. A rain-shortened lead at Charlotte, a runner-up at Texas, a dominant stretch in the All-Star race that doesn't even count towards standings. The wins he's collected are impressive. The wins that slipped away make the story even bigger. Reddick, his own driver at 23X Racing, has been one of the most consistent performers in the sport this year, and Hamlin is closing on him anyway. November in Phoenix last year was a gut punch that doesn't fully translate in stats. Hamlin lost the championship in the finale, the latest in a long line of near misses that have defined the most painful chapter of an otherwise exceptional career. Then, weeks later, he lost his father in a house fire. By December, he wasn't sure he wanted to honor the 2-year contract extension he'd already signed through 2027. That's the weight he carried into January. And then Michael Jordan stepped into a room full of 23XI Racing employees and said something that landed differently for his business partner than it did for anyone else in the building. He acknowledged that Hamlin had been through something real, and then he made it a competition. He said he wanted to see what Hamlin would do with it, whether he'd pick himself back up or whether the weight would be too much. For a driver who has built his entire public identity around using outside motivation as fuel, that was exactly the wrong thing to say to him. Or exactly the right thing, depending on which side of the numbercy. 11 car you're standing on. What separates this stretch from other hot runs in NASCAR history is the combination of what Hamlin is doing and what he's choosing to ignore while doing it. The championship math has become genuinely compelling. The regular season's top finisher enters the chase with a meaningful points advantage. 25 over second, 35 over third. Growing from there, Hamlin is 9 races away from potentially claiming that seed. If he does, and if he carries this form into the playoffs, the conversation about his legacy changes entirely. But here's the thing, Hamlin isn't interested in that conversation. He said it himself after the checkered flag at Pocono. When his crew chief told him they'd closed to within 20 points of the lead, Hamlin's response was that winning is what matters. Points are noise. That is either the most mentally disciplined thing a championship contender can say, or it's the most strategically reckless. Possibly both. The argument for it being brilliant, a driver who races for wins rather than position, tends to put themselves in position to win more often. The aggression that delivers race victories also delivers points naturally. Hamlin isn't abandoning the championship by chasing wins. He's just refusing to let the scoreboard change how he approaches each Sunday. The argument against it, NASCAR's championship format rewards calculated survival as much as outright speed. There will be moments in the chase, probably multiple moments, where the smart play is to protect a position rather than gamble for a spot. A driver who has trained himself to ignore the standings all year might struggle to flip that switch when it matters most. The other piece of this that deserves real attention is the execution factor. Hamlin himself made the distinction. After Pocono, the car hasn't gotten faster over the last month. The team has gotten cleaner. Pit execution, strategy calls, in-race adjustments, the number frees. 11 crew has tightened up, and in NASCAR, that's often the difference between a driver who wins and a driver who should have won. Chris Gale's team is operating at a level right now that amplifies everything Hamlin brings to the cockpit. And then there's the Jordan element. Because it genuinely matters to how Hamlin is racing, he's a driver who has always performed better with an edge, booze from the grandstands, criticism online, a rival running him hard on the track. Those things don't destabilize him, they focus him. Michael Jordan understood that, and whether intentional or not, the challenge he issued in the offseason gave Hamlin exactly the edge he needed to walk into Daytona with something to prove rather than something to carry. The response in the NASCAR community is complicated, and that's what makes it interesting. Hamlin has always been one of the sport's most polarizing figures. He's outspoken, he's competitive to the point of abrasiveness, and he's hosted a podcast where candid commentary sometimes runs ahead of diplomacy. The fan base that roots against him has been doing so for years. And as he pointed out himself, he reads it, he hears the boos, and he uses it. The irony of 2026 is that Hamlin has been remarkably quiet. He's not talking, he's not feuding, he's not generating controversy. He's just cashing checkered flags, and somehow that's irritating people even more than the trash talk did. The media angle that's picking up traction is the Jordan connection, the idea that one of the greatest competitors in American sports history essentially issued a challenge and is now watching his business partner answer it in real time. That narrative crosses beyond NASCAR's usual audience and into general sports territory. It's the kind of story that lands on SportsCenter regardless of what else is happening that Sunday. Analysts who cover the championship race have also started quietly adjusting their projections. Reddick was looking like the clear favorite a month ago. That picture is murkier now. Best case, Hamlin wins the regular season title, enters the chase with the points advantage, carries this form into the playoffs, and finally gets the championship that has been just out of reach his entire career. He retires after 2027 with the one thing missing from his resume. The Jordan Challenge becomes the defining chapter of his career. The moment he was pushed and didn't fold. The legacy argument is settled. Worst case, the momentum stalls. Road courses slow him down. Hamlin himself has acknowledged that non-ovals aren't the number 11 team's best surface. A stretch of difficult tracks between now and the chase cutoff lets Reddick breathe and rebuild the gap. Hamlin enters the playoffs as a contender but not the favorite, and the championship slip-in, Phoenix becomes the kind of thing that keeps happening year after year until the clock runs out. Michael Jordan told Denny Hamlin that adversity reveals character, that you either respond or you fold. He said he wanted to see what happened. 4 wins, 3 in a row, a 19-point deficit where there used to be 118. He's finding out. So here's the question. Is this finally the year Denny Hamlin ends the championship drought, or does the postseason have one more heartbreak waiting for him? Tell us what you think in the comments. This debate is worth having right now because the next 9 races are going to determine everything. And if Sportswire USA is where you come for this level of coverage, make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next.